Hi guys, just a quick video to go over a tool that I recently made for Black Ops 4 on PC, which allows users to both inject and compile GSC mods for Black Ops 4. I just wanted to go over the app, show you guys what it does, how to use it, and explain a few things that people have asked me questions on already. So first of all, the app itself is really just a front end for Sirius's T7 compiler app, which we've had for a couple of years now. So I'll leave a link to Sirius's video in the description if you guys want to check his video out. But yeah, really, it doesn't do anything different to what Sirius's compiler app does. It's just a GUI really for this app. So some people are kind of scared off by command line apps. So yeah, all my app does is exactly what Sirius's does, but in a user-friendly way. So to start things off, you want to head over to my GitHub page. I'll leave a link for that in the description. Once you're there, click on T8 Compiler GUI, click on the button with the three dots and then download, and that will download the app for you. So right click, go to extract, and then it will ask you for a password, which will always be Jack47 with a capital J. Anything on my GitHub page should be opened with that password. So click OK, and that'll produce this single exe file for you. So the app doesn't have any dependencies, you don't need anything else installed in order to use it. So if you really wanted to, you could chuck this on a USB stick and copy it to another computer and it should work fine. So we double click on this app and you'll notice a few things will happen. It will produce these two DLL files which the app requires to run. If you delete them and then try to do something in the app, it will cause a load of errors. So if that does happen, just close it, reopen it, and yeah, it'll recreate the files for you. You'll also notice that it's created a new folder called scripts, which is empty at the moment because we don't have any scripts imported. But once we start adding mods into the scripts folder, the app will be able to read from the scripts folder. So at the minute you can see selected GSC script is empty because the scripts folder is empty. But once we start adding mods into this folder, we'll be able to choose them and then inject them into the game. So we've got a few different ways of importing mods into the app so that we can inject them into the game. The first way, and probably the most common way people are going to be using this app, is with scripts that have been already compiled into a GSCC file. So if you have a GSCC file with your mod in it, if you click on the import button and find the location of your file, so I'm just going to use narrative rooms as an example here. So you just double click on your GSCC file and you'll see it's been imported successfully. So if we go into our scripts folder now, you can see it's been copied into there. And because the app reads from this scripts folder, if we go into this drop down box, we can now see narrative rooms as an option to inject into the game. The other way that we can import GSCC scripts into the app is literally just by right clicking on your GSCC file, going into the scripts folder where the app is located, pasting it in there. So now we've got Hello World and narrative rooms. And then if we go back to the app, at the minute we can just see narrative rooms, but if we click the refresh button here, we can now see both scripts, so we can choose either of those to inject into the game. The second thing that we can use the app for is for compiling GSC source code into precompiled .gscc files, which we can then later use to inject with my app. So yeah, if you have the project folder for your GSC mod, which contains your gsc.conf and your .vs code folder, you want to copy the location of that folder, click on compile project, paste that location in there. You want to make sure that you're selecting the folder which contains VS Code and not the VS Code itself. So if we go back one and just make sure that we're selecting that folder and then click on select folder down there. Give it a second and then it will say compiled successfully. If it does say compiled successfully, it will then prompt you to give it a name. So because this is the source code for my box patch, I'm just going to call this file boxpatch.gscc and then click save. And then it will say save successful. So now if we go back to the app, we can see boxpatch.gscc has been added, and obviously if you go into your scripts folder, it's going to be there as well. So now that you have your GSC mod imported into the app, doesn't matter which of the three ways you did it, whether you dragged and dropped, whether you used the import button or the compile project button, as long as you have your imported GSCC script, All you have to do now is just select it from the drop down box. Make sure you select the correct game mode relative to the mod that you want to play. So for example, the narrative rooms mod that I've made is for zombies, so make sure you select zombies. If you have a multiplayer mod, make sure you choose multiplayer. Common should work for all three of the game modes, so multiplayer, blackout, and zombies. So if you have a mod that kind of encompasses all three modes, then you'd choose common. So for me, because my mod is for zombies, I'm just going to click zombies, and then you just click inject. Now, if you get this error message, it basically just means that you're not on the right menu. So because I've chosen a zombies mod, I have to actually click on the zombies menu here. It won't work in game, and it won't work on the main menu. I have to actually click on zombies and be on this zombie menu for it to work. So try that again, and as you can see, injected successfully. So I'm going to click solo, ready up, and I'm just going to show you that the mod does actually work. I'll speed this part up. So the game's finished loading, and with that, the narrative rooms mod should also have been loaded in. Just popped a shopping free, and I'm running down to the pit so I can check the super Easter egg door is open. If you've been on my channel before, then you've most likely seen that I've made a mod which unlocks all of the super Easter egg doors on all of the Black Ops 4 Zombies maps, which usually you're not able to get into. So as you can see here, the mod has been loaded in properly, and I've got access to the super Easter egg room. So now that I've finished with the narrative rooms mod, if I wanted to change to a different mod, all I'd have to do is click the drop down, select the new mod, and then click inject. And as you can see, the game's loaded, and in a second, there you go, box patch by Jack. So if I just quickly grab this fire sale, the first box hit should be the wonder weapon for the map. The next one should be the salvo. And then the third one should be the monkeys. There you go, so the box patch mod is now loaded in. And just to be thorough, the narrative rooms mod has been deloaded. So you may have also noticed that there's a tick box here that says auto-inject. Now, if you're not sure what that does, then basically all it means is that when the compiler has finished compiling a project, it will automatically inject it into the game for you if it does succeed in compiling. So as an example, I'm just going to delete my box patch, and if I take the source code again, this time with the auto-inject ticked, and then compile the project, instead of saying just compiled successfully, it's now said compiled and injected successfully. And it'll ask us to name it again just in case we want to save it again for the future. So call it box patch, and then it will say saved successfully. So it's done the same thing. It's compiled the source code to the compiled file, and it's also added it to the app. But this time it's actually automatically injected it into the game for us. So we've skipped this part out. A feature that somebody from the Black Ops 4 community requested was the Un-inject button. So basically what it does is next to the inject GSC button there's this cross, and if you had any mods injected into the game, so I just had box patch injected just then, if you click on this cross button here, it will un-inject any mods that you had injected into the game, so basically returning the game back to its default state with no mods whatsoever. So I'm going to quickly touch on detours and whether or not you need to have detours enabled when you inject your GSC mods into the game. So the quickest way to tell whether or not your mod requires detours is just by looking at the extension of the file. So files that do require detours end in .gsic or CSIC, and mods that don't require detours to be enabled end in .gscc or CSCC. So if you have one of these mods that don't require detours, just leave this checkbox unticked and then click inject. If you have a mod that does require detours and if you try to inject it without the box being ticked, it will say that it's injected it successfully, but when you try to start the game, it's just going to crash. So if we enable the Detours checkbox, it's going to give you this warning about Project B04. Basically what it's saying is that you need to have Project B04 client installed in order to use detoured functions. That's because the base Black Ops 4 game doesn't support detours by default. So you need to have the client installed in order to actually make use of mods that require detours. So if you've never heard of Project B04, it's basically a client that's like an equivalent to Plutonium for Black Ops 2 or Boy for Black Ops 3. You may have heard of either of those two. So I'll leave a link in the description to the Project B04 GitHub, as well as a tutorial on how to install that. It's up to you whether you install Project B04 or not. But if you don't have it installed, then essentially you're not going to be able to use any scripts that require detours. I also just wanted to quickly mention CSC mods. Now, some mods will come with two files, one that ends in .cscc and one that ends in .gscc. Now, you do need both of these files in order to actually use the mod, because if you try to use just one of them on its own, you're going to get this injection error. So if we copy both of those files in and then try to use the mod again, it's going to inject successfully this time. Now, I'd also like to mention, if you do have a mod that's like this in two parts, one that's in CSCC and one that's in GSCC, make sure you choose the CSCC one, because if you use the .gscc file, it's only going to inject the GSCC part of it and not the CSCC part as well. So make sure you choose the CSCC and it will inject both parts successfully. 99% of mods aren't going to have this second file, but it's always worth covering it just in case you do have a special mod that has two files. The only other thing I should mention is that the app may be flagged by Windows Defender and/or your antivirus as a Trojan or some other kind of malware. Now, there's nothing to be alarmed about. It's a false positive. Essentially, the compiler is modifying the memory of Black Ops 4 as it's running, which is really the very definition of a virus, but the compiler is doing nothing malicious at all. You can view the source code of the compiler online. The particular fork of the Sirius compiler that I'm using is by a guy called AT47, and they're both very well trusted members of the Black Ops 4 community. So if you want to check the source code of the compiler out online just to see for yourself that nothing untoward is happening behind the scenes, then feel free. But you may need to go into your Windows Defender settings and just put an exception in there to allow the app to run. The final point for this video is that I've actually put some settings on this app for you to configure the app with. So if you go to the About page and then either swipe from the bottom or just maximize the About page, you'll see the super secret settings panel. So on here, if you don't like the default black and orange theme for some reason, you can change that to something else. So I'll choose the light background just to show you what that looks like. The detours message setting, so basically whenever you tick the detours button, it will give you that warning about having to have Project B04 client installed. If you want to stop that message from coming up every time you tick the box, then just change that to false. Also, you can enable the console here, so if we do that and then click save, and then close the app and restart it, so you can see that the background has changed from the black and orange one to this lighter theme. Also, you can see the console over here, so if we go to inject a new mod, you can see the output from the T7 compiler here, line by line, if that's something you're interested in. It may also be helpful if you're trying to troubleshoot a problem with the app if it's not injecting for some reason. And then the final one was the detours message, so as you can see, freely clicking that without the warning message coming up. If you do have any issues with the app, click on the About page in the top right and then check the version number. If you click on that and then click check for newer versions, that'll take you straight to my GitHub page where you can check the latest version of the app. So as you can see, I'm on version 1.2, which as of right now is the latest version. So yeah, if you do have any issues with the app, just make sure you're running the latest version. If you're still having problems with the app, and if you're sure it's not something that you're doing wrong, and if it's definitely a problem with the app, you can either drop a comment below or you can message me on Discord at Jack47 and I'll get back to you.